In this video, I'm going to explain some of the features of WebAssign, specifically with regards to submitting answers and assignments in WebAssign. In this dummy course that I've set up, there's only one homework assignment. You can see it listed there under My Assignments. You'll also be able to access your grades, and I'll explain how to do that later in the course. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, this is where extra resources are, and if you click on that specifically, you'll be able to find the formula sheet for the course. And this is the formula sheet that you'll be using for the test. It has all the formulas for the whole semester on it. Now let's take a look at the assignment, go over how to enter answers. So this is the assignment. You can see the first problem is listed here. And right at the top, right at the heading for this problem, if you click right where it says the points, if you click there, it'll pop down and have the various question parts, how many points each part is worth, and how many submissions you've used for each part. You can see I haven't used any submissions yet. But that's very useful, very important to know how to access so that you can see how you're progressing. And the reason why is because to get full credit for an answer, you must get it correct within 4 submissions. If it takes 5 or more submissions, you will only get half credit. Now this first one says, what is 8 plus 5? Okay, so if I click in that box, it says enter a number. So I just have to type in a number. I'm going to type in a wrong answer here. I'm going to put 10, okay? And I'm going to submit that answer. And of course it comes back with a red X. And if I go up here and I look, touch the header here, you can see I've used 1 submission. Okay, so now I say, it's not 10, it's actually 1. All right, and I submit that. And that, of course, is incorrect. And it says as much there, and I've used 2 submissions, and I still haven't got it correct. Maybe at this point you want to reach out for some help. You can go over to the right here where it says Ask Your Teacher. And you can send me a message, preferably something meaningful. Don't just say, please help, or I don't know what to do, because my response is not going to be helpful to you because I don't know what it is you need help with other than a general, you need help with this problem. So the more specific you can be, maybe explain your reasoning or show your work, the more helpful my response will be. You don't have to use this feature, of course, this Ask Your Teacher, but it is available to you. And you click send, and there it says it's sent. When I responded, you'll be able to see my response. But as I was saying, you don't have to use that. You can instead email me, or you could come to office hours or ask during class if time is available. You can reach out to your lab instructor. So you have resources available to you, so please take advantage of them. Okay, so continuing here, I'm going to enter yet another wrong answer. And actually what I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to re-enter the answer I just had, which is 1. Because I want to show you that WebAssign recognizes that I haven't changed my answer. I just made a submission. It compares all the answers to the previous answers, the ones that were there in the last submission. And if they haven't changed, then it doesn't count that as a submission. So you can see none of the submissions have changed. And I can even go on to another problem. I'm just going to go down to B here real quick and just enter some gobbledygook. There we go. And submit an answer. And now that's wrong, but again, didn't change the number of submissions for any of the others. Okay, let's continue with A, though. That's the one I want to focus on. Now, if you recall, my first submission for A was 10. If I re-enter that for my 3rd submission, it will count that as a submission. You can see here next to the points it says previous answers. If I click on previous answers, it shows all the answers I've made. You can see my first submission I put in 10. My second submission I put in 1. Then I just quickly threw in an answer for B so I could just show you what happened there. And then 4, I went back to 10. Okay? And that counted as a submission because it was different than 1. So be aware of that. Okay, I'm going to continue putting in wrong answers here. I'll just put 1 in again, why not? Okay, now I've used up 4 submissions. Okay? If I put in the correct answer, 13, and I submit that, now I get the green check mark. Unfortunately, though, it took me 5 tries, so I only get 1 point. I only get half credit. Instead of the full 2, I only get 1. And if it took me 6, 7, 8, 99 tries, I would still, as long as I got it correct, I would still get half credit, you know. So that's how that part works. Now let's go to B, where it says the correct answer to this problem is 0.9899. WebAssign decides, it determines whether or not your answer is correct by comparing it to the answer that WebAssign has, and you must be within 1%. So there's a 1% tolerance. If you are outside of that 1% tolerance, your answer will be counted as incorrect. So for example, in this problem, the correct answer to this problem is 0.9899. You might, if you'd done the calculations and you got that, you might be tempted to round that to 1. And so you might want to say, hey, I'm just going to put in 1 in, and that's incorrect. 1 is an incorrect answer because it is, if I recall correctly, 1.02% off of the correct answer of 0.9899. So it's only off by a very small amount, right? 0.0101. That's all it's off by, but it's outside of that 1% tolerance, so it's counted incorrect. So my recommendation is that when you are doing your calculations, to ensure that you are within that 1% tolerance, assuming you're doing everything correctly, I recommend you take out your calculations at least 5 sig figs and that you enter at least 4 sig figs into WebAssign. And the reason for that is because if you're entering in 4 sig figs and you've done everything correctly, you should be within that 1% tolerance. Now, if you enter less than that, you still might get it counted correct. You might enter 2 sig figs and it might be counted correct. You might enter 1 sig fig. It might be counted correct. Okay? But again, if you're outside that 1% tolerance, it could be marked incorrect even though you're doing everything correctly. You will never have an answer counted off because you have entered too many digits. But it might be counted incorrect because you didn't enter enough. So bear that in mind. And also remember, with regards to significant figures, as you're reading from left to right, it's the first non-zero that counts as the first sig fig. So for my answer here that I've entered for B, I've got 0, that doesn't count. 0.9, 9 is the first non-zero, so that's my first sig fig, and then I just keep counting from there to 4. It doesn't matter what the other ones are, if they're 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever, it doesn't matter. So this for B shows 4 sig figs. I'll point out that A shows only 2 sig figs, but of course 13 was the exact answer, so it's okay that it only had 2 sig figs because that was the exact answer. But 0.899, that is the correct answer. By the way, while I've been talking here, you'll notice this little yellow frame came up and it says viewing saved work, revert to last response. Okay. If you have ever entered an answer and then this comes up, what it's done is it has saved the work. Okay. So if you don't want it to submit that answer, so if I say, oh, I actually don't want to submit 0.9899, that I don't think that's correct, you can't just delete it. WebAssign will remember it. So you need to click this revert to last response to undo that. Okay. So click that to get back to this. But 0.9899 is what I want to enter, so I am going to go ahead and submit that. And there we go, I got that correct. Now C, if I click in that box, notice that it says enter a number with units. This answer requires not just a number, but units. The question is, what is 3 newtons plus 3 newtons? The capital N represents the unit of newtons, which is a unit of force. So this answer is 6 newtons. Let me go back over this again. You enter the number, of course, but then before you enter the units, you must do a space. Oops. So I'm going to do that. I must do a space. Okay. And it is a capital N. Okay. So whether it's uppercase, lowercase, that matters. So make sure that you, if it's capitalized, it needs to be capitalized, then put it as capitalized. Now, I could, let me just show you what happens if I put in something completely, or let me show you what happens if I don't enter any units. So I just put 6. It's going to come up with an error message here. Units are required for this answer. Okay. Okay. I need units. And by the way, it didn't count that as a submission. If I go up, you'll see it did not count that as a submission. All right. So let's say that I want 6 seconds, and I submit that. Well, it comes back and it says dimensionally incorrect. Okay, seconds measure time, newtons measure force. So these quantities are completely different. And so it doesn't even count that as a submission. If I go up here, still hasn't counted that as a submission. So I have to enter units that are dimensionally relevant for it to be counted. So 6 newtons, there we go, submit that answer. There we go, that's the correct answer. Now, D and E deal with powers of 10, how to enter power of 10 notation, what people sometimes refer to as scientific notation. So in this case, 7.47 times 10 to the negative 13th. So I just type in 7.47, and then I do a lowercase e. It could be an uppercase e, actually, it doesn't matter, but lowercase is easier to do. So lowercase e, and then I've got to enter the power of 10, which in this case is negative 13. So that's negative 13. No spaces there. 7.47 e negative 13. That is how I enter that power of 10 notation. I just go ahead and submit that. There we go. Done. Now for the last one, E here, the correct answer to this problem is 8.38 times 10 to the 12th kilograms. Okay, so power of 10 notation with a unit. All right, 8.38 E 12, and then space because I'm going to enter my units. Now I'm going to enter the wrong units here. I've shown you what happens like if I put seconds in, for example. We already saw this before, but I'll just do it again. Dimensionally incorrect. Okay, but now I'm going to put in grams. And let me just show you before I do this. It did not count that as a submission, as we already know it wouldn't. Okay? But now I'm putting in grams, which is a unit for mass. Kilograms is a unit of mass. Grams are a unit of mass. And if I submit this, it's going to say wrong. It counted this as a submission. I had the wrong units, but they were dimensionally correct. And so it counted that as a submission. So now I put the correct units, kilograms, I submit that answer, and there we go. And I'm all set there. So numerical is where the biggest tricks are, I shouldn't say the biggest tricks, but where the most confusion can come, and you have to be careful about your syntax. I want to emphasize that you should never lose points for any technical issues or for syntax issues. So if you're having some kind of problem, contact me, let me know. We're certainly going to resolve that. If it's a technical issue, it should not negatively impact your academic performance. The other types of questions you will see are multiple choice, like this one, number 2, imagine the gathering which guild is associated with the colors red and white. And so there's only one correct answer. Okay, so if you select an answer, it won't let you pick 2. Okay, so you got to pick the correct answer, which is Boros. There you go, and then that's it. Another type, and you'll see this is where you have these little almost square boxes here. This is where there's at least one correct answer, but there could be more than one correct answer. So in the following list of movies, choose all the ones that T'Challa was in. Okay, so, again, it's at least one. So I know he's in Black Panther, so I know there's at least one. But it could be, hypothetically at least, all of them. So it must be at least one. It could be all of them. In this case, it's not all of them. Let's see, where was he? He wasn't in that. He wasn't in that. He was in Strange. He was in Civil War. Yes, I believe that's it. Yep. And then down here, number 4, this is, you'll see this when you have a ranking question, or it might be not multiple choice, but matching. So it might be ranking or matching. And so like in this case, it says rank the following Star Wars movies from best to worst. And then should have some kind of extra sentence where it says you will not receive credit until all are ranked correctly. Because if you just do one and you submit it, the rest of them aren't there, and so it counts that as wrong. That it counts as a submission, and it was wrong. You must have them all entered correctly to receive credit. So in this case, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and then it'd be now Solo and Rogue One. And they could be flipped, just depends how you feel. Right now I'm feeling Solo slightly better, but clearly the worst is all the rest. And so then you submit that, and there you go. So that's all there is to submitting their answers, to submitting your answers and getting everything. Obviously, though, if you have any questions about how to properly submit an answer, just reach out to me. I'm happy to walk you through and explain what you have to do. The last thing I want to show you, though, is how to request an extension, which is right here, right under the due date. You see the request extension button. You just click that, and you can do that for, well, I think you can probably do it for any assignment, but the only ones that I will grant extensions for are the homework. Any homework, regardless of when it was, if you need an extension, I will almost always grant it. So you just go through, fill out this form, submit it, and as soon as I see it, I'll grant it. And that's everything.